when it comes to fraud, there's a lot of data, and the technology from Parascript is helping various organizations to capture those transactions, make sense of what's there. So I'll be talking through, sharing a little bit more about who is Parascript, what is the instance of check fraud that's still out there, very relevant throughout the world. And then we'll be going into signature verification. And then from there, all of this is around documents, the various data points that are out there. It may be around individuals, around accounts, those transactions. And then we'll be talking about the number of challenges that are out there in and around this topic. So about Parascript, we are a recognition technology company located in northwest of Denver, a town called Longmont. However, this small company, like many, we do partner with a lot of solution providers. Our reach and expanses through those larger brand names that you might be utilizing today. We have a global presence through that network, and millions of documents, billions of documents are being processed using the recognition technology provided by Parascript. Most of those who are on the attendee list today may be utilizing Parascript software to some degree. You may not be aware of it. It takes a lot of technologies to help drive down that fraud exposure, risk exposure. We are pleased to be a part of that network. So a little bit about our products. Here are a few software tools that we license to a variety of different solutions out there in the world. So I'll just briefly touch on these on this slide, and we'll be talking a little bit more detail about how they're applied in fraud prevention. So on top left here, you should see Check Expert AI. This is a tool to help capture a lot of data from payment documents. A lot of information, transactions available on a check transaction, check payment document. Along with that, there may be a signature. Signatures are applied in a lot of different areas, including loans, even today, or whether that's electronic or on a physical piece of paper, voting, as well as perhaps an auto loan. So identifying that signature, verifying it, it's still an important part of work that we participate in. Coming back to the checks on the bottom left, you'll see this information about check stock. Checks can be altered, and if they are, you want to be able to identify that. And what we look to do there is identify what's good, compare against what's bad, and give back an output, a score. That's there. And finally, I'll touch on a little bit about FormXtra.Al. This is a document recognition technology for advanced classification, location of data, be it structured or unstructured information. What it has, what we're applying more and more to our technologies, is smart learning. Essentially, the technology will be learning and adapting to what's being presented to give you more insight as to what's happening on those various documents. So let's talk a little bit about check fraud. Check fraud has been there for a very long time. Over the past 15 years, it has more than doubled. The attacks are increasing. Meanwhile, the use of checks is declining. In the same time frame, we've seen in the US, the volume of checks are on a major decline. It seems to have leveled out a bit at the moment. And in 2018 survey, American Bankers Association surveys identified that approximately $16 billion in check fraud attempt was in the network. Around that time, approximately 1.3 billion was lost to check fraud. And when we think about that, that's a impact on all of us. That money is funding other fraudulent activities as well. So we are a network of technology providers who want to do our best on how to reduce that. When we look at the more recent surveys and reports in a recent review, in 2020, it was estimated to be around 1 billion or so. So there is improvement there, and the intelligence that's out there in the network is helping us to improve on this. But beyond the loss, for most financial institutions, there is a reputational issue. You don't want to be the one that's going to be seen as the bad bank who didn't protect the customers. So it's a very competitive landscape there as well. There's a lot of pressure from the regulators to be more compliant, not only for the losses, but also just to help catch suspicious activity that links to KYC and other AML related transactions that could be captured around checks and other transactions around those monies that are out there. So when we think about the fraud, it is definitely a worldwide issue, from checks and to the other documents, the other trailing transactions that occur around them. So when we think about checks, it's not the forefront of our minds. Many of our transactions today are electronic. However, checks still do exist, approximately 15 billion flowing throughout the US. And there's a lot of data on a check item. So where is the payment coming from? Where is it going to? So where we see that pay to the order of line, that can be of interest to teams to understand, what's happening with that transaction. Where's it coming from? Where's it going to? The amount is somewhat interesting. Normally, institutions want to deposit that, get that money into the system quickly, clear that payment or match that payment. There may be alterations there. You might want to investigate that as well. If somebody tries to add an extra zero or two, you probably don't want to let that flow through. So there's a lot of information here from the image of a check that we can lift, as well as the code line, account information, and what have you. Signatures, it needs to be authorized. So we can check that it is present, and using other products such as FormXtra.Al, we can help verify that signature as well. So on this slide, you see an example of how institutions are leveraging check products, and it can also be for other types of transactions that come through, whether it's a mobile capture or at the branch of the bank. It could be through merchants that these items are coming in. At the point of capture, there will be some recognition that'll give you some immediate feedback as to what's happening on that transaction, on the amount, where it is. Outside of the recognition technology, there's a lot of information about that location too. So geolocation information can be applied in that fight against fraud. The timing and the behavior around that transaction is always interesting. Bank technology groups will monitor those items as they come in, and more than not, they'll land into a centralized system to do further verification around that full transaction. So as it comes to the check items, they might use something like FormXtra.Al, perhaps also in conjunction with FormXtra.Al, to classify that item, to know what it is, and verifying that it's a good item with check stock, and then also verifying that signature was approved and a permitted transaction. So I hope that gives you some idea as to how this technology can be leveraged within a banking environment. This can extend to other areas, even in insurance or wealth management, for example. These could be various forms and documents that are coming in, and you might be looking to verify and locate key information off of those items. So let's talk a little bit further about FormXtra.Al. So this is the latest technology. The .ai portion of it means these newer algorithms are built on the machine learning based AI systems that are interrogating the images more closely through a number of different mechanisms that lifts this information with the highest accuracy, near human-like performance. What that means on the back end is that that's going to have operational improvements, where if you have to solely depend on manual processes to verify and look at these things, it can be very taxing. So this technology can certainly help that. So we have courtesy amount, legal amount mismatch, which I mentioned earlier. That's going to help you to catch issues that might be there. Check numbers. Some institutions, they want to see the behavior of those transactions, are the checks in sequence, what's going on, and that date field as well can be quite interesting to all. Around that process, we mentioned a little bit about the payee line, so pay to the order of. Again, that's becoming more interesting to institutions because they want to match and know the various questions about that transaction, and again the signature presence. In some cases, we may see information on the memo line. What was that transaction about? Again, that's information we can lift. So looking at the paper itself that was coming into the system, institutions have good check images that they've processed previously. We know them to be good. If a check is out there in the world, someone may catch that. They may look to wash it, change it, or create a whole other item that looks very similar to a real check. Using check stock, we can quantify these features of a good check as a numerical value, and that is a system by which we can compare against an item that's coming in. When a alteration is made, that scanned document, the new document coming in, will have a different set of changes, and this technology will be able to identify and show you where those alterations were. So this is a very powerful tool, also growing in demand out there in the market today as it relates to check fraud. So let's talk a little bit about signatures. Signatures are a type of, it is a biometric in its own right, in that a lot like our voices, our fingerprint, it's unique to us. How we write is very much a part of you. It is a critical part of society. We routinely have to authorize and approve items today. It is somewhat impacted by the mood, the environment, the writing instrument that's there. What is the writing surface? We might be tired. We might not write always the same way. And all of that can be captured and identified through the recognition technology. And it can give you a non-human view of that output. So as an assessor who needs to make a judgment on whether or not an item is a real signature or not, having this type of technology can help you to get through the noise, if you will. If you're having to face hundreds and thousands of these on a daily basis, having the signature verification capability certainly helps a lot. So how does FormXtra.Al help in this area? So we have a reference image that can be perhaps a signature card. When you onboarded a customer, you took their signature with their ID. Perhaps the ID itself has a signature, and you might be using that as a reference image. As a new item comes in, FormXtra.Al can help you to locate that signature from that input document, verify it against the authentic signature references that we've seen, and then give you good output that's going to be removing the noise that's around that item, to make it an easier way to locate and match this data. So a little bit more on that. When it comes to checks, we can certainly do that for whether it's on a personal or a business check, or it may be a foreign item. That's okay. What we're looking and focusing on is the signature, the fragments of a document. So you can think of a company minutes signatures, for example. You might want to be sure that everybody was present, everybody was there. That's an example of a document with snippets that you might want to interrogate, loans and whatnot. In this process of looking at those documents, those snippets, verifying that is accurate, it can be challenging. It may be that the item is coming through a handheld device. What that means is the resolution may not be as pristine as a desktop scanned item. In this new technology with the AI-based build, we're able to get a far cleaner, crisp process as we go through that process. So again, to connect these dots, you've got a lot of information that's flowing into your fraud and risk system. signatures are present, and we can help you to verify that information more accurately. It's another reference point for you to work with. On this slide, you can see some instances where human operators had accidentally passed through a accepted forgery. That can happen. The operator may have been tired, and on the right, you see the genuine article that they may have been comparing against. You can you can sympathize with this type of situation, but it does happen. So some items leak through. By having the confidence score output and the reference from the signature verification technology, it gives the user another opportunity to maybe question that item. On the bottom half, what you see there is the rejected genuine. So on the bottom left-hand corner there, you see a signature. It was rejected. Perhaps the authorizer was a little bit shy, having let a forgery go through previously. Again, having a machine-based output, that gives you another reference point to make all of this more efficient and user-friendly. Signatures can be on documents. We can also do this on electronic pads that may be coming in. The way we write, the way we are pressing onto the item, the utensil being used in that process, can give a lot of feedback around the fluency of the writing, so which again cannot always be replicated by other fraudsters, and having this technology certainly helps you to fight those issues. So bringing it back around to the forms and document space. So a lot of data is out there. The accounts are being set up. The transactions are being made. A lot of regulations on making sure that the information is present. And FormXtra is a very strong classification data extraction product that helps you to apply a number of different techniques. You may, within operations, you may have rules. This document must come with X, Y, and Z. And we're going to use a template to capture this information, which all works fine. However, what's more impressive, I would say, of Parascript technology is its smart learning capability, where we can feed the engines this information. It will learn and adapt to what you're looking for and give you options in that process to locate, give you the output and a confidence score of what it has read. This could be applied to things like tax documents, loans, mortgages, other transactions, including checks that perhaps need to be classified, zones of interest interrogated more closely. And we can combine these with things like FormXtra.Al through scripting to help you to lift a lot more information around the whole transaction. So all of these are various data points that can occur in different silos of an operation. And as you go through this, we come up with a huge data challenge. So we heard earlier about how there's a lot of ways in which fraudsters are looking to trick you, and they may be forcing a lot of information to you. There may be many attempts just so that they can have that one or two items slip through. So human effort isn't going to just work in that scenario. So we need to be able to find the reliable data sets, and analyzing and working with those other technologies is important. There can be a lot of false positives. A lot of the time is lost by fraud and risk teams. The newer technology is helping to fight this area. And with the logics that builds out of this process, it's helping teams to also prevent fraud before it's taken place. The higher accuracy, I would say, is a key factor. The new technologies in this process, as we're building forward, leaves itself to changes in the infrastructure. A lot of institutions, a lot of organizations are going to the cloud. That creates opportunities in how we deploy, where we deploy, and where we interrogate this information. The one piece I will say is the subject matter experts and the focus on fraud. It's underrated sometimes, it's underestimated, I would say. we won't be removing those. We'll be there to facilitate them. And it's going to take a combination of technologies to help combat the fraud that's out there. And we are seeing a lot of interest from other industries that want to identify and share the data between various points. And somewhere in that process is a recognition need. We're very grateful to be a part of that network and in the fight against fraud. So in summary, what Parascript's recognition technology is a leading software toolset that is applied through a wide network of solution providers. This includes in areas within the fraud and risk space. Recognition technology helps you to capture this data. It also creates a lot of opportunities for various areas within your organization to streamline processes and to prevent fraud. Not only that, it can help you to perhaps prove to regulators that may be asking for certain areas had they been checked. So with this technology, you can have another reference point to show them that the best is up to date and you have this information available to them. So I hope that's been helpful. I'll stop there. I'll stop to share and